Hello, everyone. Lisa Gritzner will come up, and staff are going to try and find our speakers who do appear to be showing up now. So, Christina, welcome. I'm going to jump off.
There she is. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I can see you and I can hear you, and you look spectacular as always. So thank you so much. Oh, there she is. Oh, yes.
Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello. Hello. Oh, this is amazing. Well, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to introduce Christina Sanchez from the Milagro Strategy Group, who is our moderator for this next panel. I'm super excited to watch this. So welcome to these amazing elected leaders, and I'm going to get out of here. See you guys.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning. And thanks again to Vika for having me this morning, and for all of those praying to the technology warriors, because I was having some problems earlier. It's my pleasure to moderate this next panel, particularly since I am a constituent to some of you. It's been an amazing event. Dr. Beck, I am a CSUN mom. My daughter graduated from the Nazarian School of Business, and she's with one of the big 4 firms and doing very, very well. I want to introduce our panels. Joining us today, Laura Friedman, California State Assemblywoman. Good morning. Fiona Ma, California State Treasurer. Luz Rivas, California State Assemblywoman, and Monica Rodriguez, LA City Councilwoman, and proud constituent to both Luz and to Monica. Good morning to all of you. Again, I want to remind you, if you have some questions to ask, please do so in the chat box, and we'll be getting to those later. I'm eager to hear from all of you, especially since the pandemic and the crises, and we've seen how leadership has been so important more than ever. And do we see a difference, obviously, on how men legislate and govern versus a female? So here's our first question. Do you think there are more challenges for women candidates? And if so, what are those? I know this is a loaded question. Let's start with Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you so much. Yes, there are definitely more obstacles placed in the way of women to seek public office. That's been longstanding. When I first ran for city council back in 2007, I was an executive with one of the second largest state trade association in the country. I was a mother of 2. I was a homeowner. And yet when I was in the process of running, I was being told, in fact, I had worked for many elected officials, including Mayor Reardon and representing the San Fernando Valley. And yet I was told by many, they were like, well, is she really ready? Does she really have the experience? And yet, our friend and esteemed Senator, Mr. Padilla, who was living at home at the time with his parents when he was 26 years old and ran, didn't have those same levels of questioning. And so those are some of the circumstances, the ability to raise money, how people question your qualifications. It's just part and parcel of what we experience that's substantially different than what men do. I mean, the conversations that ensue many times is, suit, shave, and a red tie, and, they're ready to go. And for us, we have to be 10 times more experienced than our male counterparts in order to enjoy the same level of support. And even in my most recent race, when I ran in 2017, with all of the experience that I had, having someone who just moved into the district, there was just those similar kind of questions. Well, can she really win? And I was like, I had amassed all of the local support and political support and fundraising prowess to do that, but it didn't eliminate those questions. And so absolutely, there's no question that the obstacles exist. And it's why, as you know, I started Latinas Lead California to help close that gap, particularly for women of color, particularly for Latinas, because while we have been instrumental in helping to elect many in the state of California at the local level, at the state, at the federal level, the pathways and the doors have never remained open for us. And so once we kick that door open, our job is to keep it open for everyone else to follow.
Thank you, Monica, for that. Very, very important. We're definitely held to other standards. Assemblywoman Friedman, what do you think about this issue?
Well, I agree with everything that Councilmember Rodriguez said, and I commend her for starting Women Latinas Lead. Super important to help elevate other women, and particularly women who are often marginalized and have more challenges to get elected. I'll just add that there is a kind of quota system when it comes to women electeds, and there's a sort of this feeling that there can only be one woman who runs in each race, or one woman on a council, or one woman on a board, and anybody else who wants to interfere with that is seen as, you know, kind of like an interloper. Whereas nobody says that about men. No one says, hey, wait, you're like the fourth male Democrat running in this race. Like, maybe you should get out. But they do that with women all the time, with the expectation that, you know, only one woman could win or should win, or be represented. So there are a lot of challenges that I think that we put on ourselves sometimes, and to buying into that. There's also a large expectation about the kinds of policy priorities that women will bring to the table. I'll just give a quick example, which is when I was first elected to the Glendale City Council years ago, a group of male leaders came to visit me in my office, and one of them said, you know, it's so great to have you. I was the first woman in 10 years to be on that council. They said, now that you're there, the council has a heart. You know, that now we have a heart on the council, and someone who'll care about the women and care about the children. And yes, that's true, but I also care about water infrastructure, and I care about road repair. And yet they didn't vote for me for that. So once they had their heart, I guess the assumption was they didn't need the rest of the package. So there are definitely a lot of challenges for women. But I will say on the other side that there are a lot of women out there that are very dedicated to getting women elected. And I was able to win my assembly seat really because of this group of women who embraced me, even women out of my district, and supported me. And that made all the difference in the world.
Thank you for that. And I believe we can completely hear you, but your screen is freezing. And again, it's those technology wars that we rely on. State Treasurer Ma, your point of view on this.
Yeah, so absolutely. I'm the state treasurer right now, and this is my fourth elected office. I haven't lost one race, but that's because I believe I have worked harder than all of my opponents. I'm dedicated and focused, you know, on public service. Don't have children, which was a decision back then because it's not easy to do everything well all the time. And so this has been my calling. But when I first ran for my first office back in 2002, I was 36 years old. And I remember a former member of the Board of Supervisors, a little older woman, when I asked for her endorsement, she said, well, you're married, right? And I said, yes, I'm married. Well, don't you think you should stay home and have kids first? And then you can run for office after your kids are grown. And so I was like kind of shocked, you know, that an older woman would say that, you know, to a younger woman. And I think things have changed a lot. As women, we are now feeling empowered. More and more of us are running. And we understand that it is important, like Dr. Beck said earlier, for us to lift each other up, to endorse each other, to make sure that we are there for each other, regardless of whether, you know, we're able to raise as much money as the men, whether we're part of the boys club, so to speak. But we are feeling our voice. We have great organizations like Emerge and Women Lead and all these other women affinity group, where we now know that we have a network that we can go to, okay? Women may not be able to max out at a certain dollar amount, but we have other ways through social media, through our, you know, networks to help each other get to that next level. This is the first time we've had so many women elected statewide, right? We had Dianne Feinstein, Senator, and Kamala Harris before she became VP. Eleni Kounalakis, Lieutenant Governor, Betty Yee, State Controller, myself as State Treasurer, Malia Cohen, State Board of Equalization. We have more women in statewide office than any other state, but it's taken a long, long time. But we need to continue. And it's great that women like some of the women, Laura Friedman, the Women's Caucus is very strong right now. Senator Rivas just joined us, and they asked me and Eleni and Betty to also be part of the Women's Caucus, because I'd like to find my successor, right? But if we don't have those relationships and understand who is ready and willing to go and run statewide, then it becomes very difficult to fill that pipeline. So I'm glad that I'm part of the Legislative Women's Caucus this year.
Thank you, and thank you for your incredible representation, and welcome, Assemblymember Rivas. Happy to see you here. Happy constituent, go Tigers, go Latinas lead. Lots of shout outs for our Northeast San Fernando Valley. I am going to give you this, since you're joining us now, the question was, what are the challenges that you faced as a female candidate, and how has it been different from you as opposed to your male counterparts?
No, I've been listening in, so happy to finally join you on the stage. I think that challenges that women have, a lot of times, most of us are caregivers, whether we have children or we take care of a parent, and we have a lot of responsibilities. And I think that it makes us think through longer whether we're going to run for office or not, right? And I've myself, but also a lot of candidates that now call me for an endorsement that they're thinking about running for the state legislature, or, you know, we're trying to recruit them. You know, as Fiona mentioned, we're all members of the California Legislative Women's Caucus. Our goal is to bring in more women to the state legislature. Hopefully we will get to 50%, where we should be. And a lot of times when we identify women, you know, they bring up these issues, their responsibilities. Additionally, I think another challenge for a lot of women is raising money, right? And being competitive enough to run in their districts.
Without a doubt, I feel like we obviously have to prove ourselves much more differently than men for the most part. Give me some of the examples of how you've been treated differently than your male counterparts and how you have overcome some of those obstacles. Let's go with Assemblymember Friedman.
Well, as I said, the expectations about the kind of policy that you'll gravitate towards and the kind of policy that you're good at is pretty profound. And we do care about children, and we do care about social services, and we do care about women. And we also care about a lot of other things. We care about banking, and we have a female Senate chair of banking. We care about natural resources and energy, and Assemblymember Rivas is chairing natural resources. We care about infrastructure. I'm chairing transportation. And sometimes it's hard to get people to take us seriously in those roles, much less to appoint us to those roles. It's taken a long time to have women chairing those kinds of committees. And I want to commend our speaker, Anthony Rendon, and Pro Tem Atkins for being willing to put women, not just willing, but anxious to put women into those roles. And we overcome them by just being better and working harder. That's what we end up having to do. You know, people want us to smile more and be soft and wear a lot of pink. And I am wearing pink today just because it's what I grabbed. You know, we get tone police a lot about being too harsh, not just by men, but by women. Back when I was on the council, I used to get all kinds of texts during council meetings or calls later from women telling me to wear lipstick. And this is always women, you know, criticizing what I was wearing and suggesting that I wear something different. You know, we need to kind of knock it off, be kind to each other and understanding, and then to ourselves as well. And you know, focus on the things that matter, which is our contributions. More than our style, although we have a lot of style up here. And certainly Councilmember Rodriguez's glasses are making me very jealous. So, you know, but I will say that, you know, every woman and twice as much for women of color who are elected, it's because they are smarter and they do work harder. And so we have an incredibly capable group of electeds. And I think now showing that we do belong in every single policy area is what we're doing, hopefully, so that the next generation of girls won't have to prove that to anyone.
Councilmember Rodriguez, I think we need another box just for your glasses, by the way, since they're quite a hit this morning. LA City Council, no doubt, male-dominated has been for a long time, one of 3 females. What are the challenges that you face and how you overcome those, particularly in that body?
Well, I think it's really important to lead in the areas where we're given opportunities. And one of the most one of the privileges that I have is serving as public safety chair, which, you know, for me, when I was appointed over a year and a half ago, I'm the first woman of color ever to chair this committee at a time where in the city we have some pretty substantial work before us, given the response, for example, with the most recent uprising last year. And so, you know, it's, you know, I'm really proud that, you know, you mentioned earlier, Laura, Speaker Rendon's commitment to helping to create more opportunities for women in leadership roles. You know, it was Mayor Garcetti who made a commitment to appoint, you know, over 50% of women to commissions in the city of Los Angeles. It was through that example that he was putting women in leadership roles that were non-traditional, where you talk about a woman at the chair, serving as chair as the Fire Commission. There are several examples where we've had that. For me, it was serving as vice president on the Board of Public Works. And through those examples and those opportunities, digging into the work, becoming subject matter experts on areas related to infrastructure. For me, you know, digging in on the work for public safety, those are very important for us to really become those subject matter experts and to lead in those areas. But I will tell you, you know, even when I took office and among some of, you know, a particular former colleague that made a reference, you know, suggesting that I shouldn't be such a bitch. And, you know, and I just said, well, it seems to me you need a bitch who knows how to get shit done around here. And I say that so you all understand that if we don't fight back to those kinds of conversations and narratives, then shame on us. But I don't dial back in those moments. I think it really presents us with an opportunity to forge forward and to show our strength and to not be fearful and to take on these opportunities as ones to continue to blaze trails. Because if we don't do it, no one else will. And we can't afford to waste any more time. So I think it's really important that we, they affectionately dubbed the lean in. I don't think we have time to lean in. We got to push our way in, and we got to keep forging forward. And so, I think, we've definitely had our obstacles, but we continue to need to rely on one another to support one another in these roles and continue to advance our progress.
Thank you for that. I want to speak very briefly about what it is that we're doing as leaders, elected leaders, to develop that new generation of those who want to run for office. We know, for example, Assemblymember Rivas came into office in a very different situation and continued, obviously, to represent the Northeast San Fernando Valley. But are we doing enough, or what are you doing to set that bench for females in particular to run for office? State Treasurer Ma, can we start with you?
Yes. So I just wanted to say, number one, when some of the other speakers talked about men, since men, are in the majority, Governor Jerry Brown committed to having 50% of his commissioners women. And he was good on his promise, mostly because our good friend, Mona Pascal was his appointment secretary, and Governor Gavin Newsom has also committed to having 50%, and he's got a woman appointment secretary. So even if we're not in that leadership position, if we're in that major supporting role, we also can make a difference. So we don't all need to be elected to be able to level the playing field. I do want to say when Eleni Kounalakis, who I've been friends for many, many years, when she decided to run for lieutenant governor, you don't know how many people told me, men mostly, if you support Eleni and she wins, you may run against her someday. And I go, good for us if we run against each other, right? That means that we have come to that point where we can run for those top positions. And I do think it is important, like Monica said, it's, what is it? No time to lean in. Like, we just have to push forward, stand we believe is right, support each other, even if we're going to compete against each other. And I did compete against another woman. It was just me and her when I ran for the assembly in 2006. We committed not to go negative. And it's really hard because all the men consultants always want you to go negative, right? They want you to send out like nasty emails where we look bad or whatever. And I had all the op research on her. She had all the op research on me. And we just decided to keep it, very, very civil. And to this day, even that same week, she hosted an event at her house and she just said, thank you, Fiona Ma's here. She won for the state assembly. I really respect her. And I said, I really respect you. And we're still friends to this day. So it can, we can have civil elections. It doesn't always have to get nasty. And, I think when women run against each other, that's something that we always push for, is like, let's just stick to the issues and not go negative.
It's amazing how you still hear, have you asked permission to run for office? Ask permission from who? Assemblymember Rivas on the issue of developing that bench and next generation of leaders.
Sure. I think what I look for are women that are leaders in their community. We don't have to look for someone that works for an elected official, right? Or, that's what traditionally, it would be someone that is a staffer. But there are a lot of women that are working out there in different fields. And I think we benefit from having women that come from different backgrounds, right? Like my background, I'm an electrical engineer. And just this week, I was having conversations with clean energy leaders. We're talking about the challenges of transmission, transmitting this renewable energy that we're generating to where we need it. And, we're starting to talk all the technical details. I'm probably one of the few people in the legislature that has taken undergraduate courses on electromagnetic energy and fields and all of those issues related to transmission lines. And I think we benefit from that. Like, we have medical doctors that are either running for office or in the legislature. I really appreciate when my colleagues bring that background. I think it's very helpful to the policymaking process. And so I think that's what I think we need to look for. Where are women succeeding in different fields, and that can be a potential candidate for office?
Thank you for that. Here's a good question, actually. In your experience, have you seen a difference in how elected women and elected men define ambition or success in life? Anyone want to take that one?
I was going to say something that I don't know if it answers your question, but it seems to me that like a lot of men go to college and they're 19 or they're 23 years old and they they wake up one day and they say, I'm going to run for Congress. And they do. And, they say, because I'm really smart and I've got some ideas, and so you should vote for me. They don't wait. Women agonize over this. Am I ready? Can I raise money? Am I right for this? Do I have enough experience? Is it going to be too hard on my family? Of course, I hate to generalize, but I'm going to generalize. Men don't do that. Men, they just figure they want it, so they should have it, right? They want it, and they're going to just make it happen. And it's a big competition, a big game. And that's just the way it's going to be. And, I've seen so many women, and myself included, who, sit around and they could think about it and talk about it. And, maybe I never felt, even up to when I was running, that I deserved my seat. It took me a really long time to realize that I deserved it as much as my young male opponent, if not more so. I was like, well, wait a second. I'm like a city council member and I've made policy. Like, why shouldn't I be doing this? But even before I decided to run, I was like, yeah, but, there'll probably be people running who have a lot of experience. There'll probably be people running who, they just, in my mind, I wasn't as worthy as they were. And, we just have to knock it off. We have to make sure that our girls, our children, have that confidence, that we raise them believing that they don't have those barriers. And I do think that we still have this problem where women see each other as competition too much because of that unspoken quota. And so it's harder sometimes for women to allow themselves to really leap into helping other women because, you know, as Fiona said, you know, that could be your competition. And we have got to help each other, because the more we help each other, the stronger we get. You know, we're just now, I think, starting to rise to the level of networking that men have had for years. You know, we don't yet have as much of our version of, you know, going to the golf course with the guys and, you know, just naturally helping each other in our network. I come from the film industry, and this was profound. It was a profound problem in the boardroom when I was in the industry. You know, we knew that there was only going to be one of us. It was like the Highlander, you know, movies. I don't know if you remember that. There could only be one. Like, the women were going to knock each other off and fight each other because there's only going to be one of you at the VP level. The rest were going to be men. And I could tell you a lot of stories about that in action, but you know, we have got to sort of encircle our arms around the women around us, and, you know, lift each other up and then reach down and pull the other one up above us, not just to our level, but above us.
Anyone else want to chime in on that one?
Well, you know, I'll kind of provide a little bit of a segue. I mean, I think it's really important, to Laura's point about pulling one another up is incredibly important. You know, 80% of my staff is women. 100% of my leadership team are women, and that's with intention. And we have to be working with intention in these areas. You know, I remember when I was hiring, and I brought in some folks to help do some of the preliminary interviews. And a gentleman that was assisting me, who was a good friend of mine, made this comment, was like, you know, Monica, at some point you're going to have to hire a guy. And I said, says who? You know, there was never, you know, an expectation in terms of how many, you know, what the ratio of men to women would be in these offices historically. And so I think, you know, we're at this moment with so many women in elected office, women in leadership roles. Look, in the private sector, given what's happened in the pandemic, we need more women to be supporting one another. You see it in the tech industry. You see it, frankly, it's cross-industry. The lack of diversity, the lack of, you know, women representation in these areas. And I think, you know, this is an opportunity where we have to hold one another accountable to making sure that, you know, we're creating those opportunities for women to lead in these areas, to groom and support with intention, so that they can continue to advance and we make strides in this area. Because, you know, look, it was absolutely demoralizing and defeating that we could not overturn 209 in this last election, which would have created a greater opportunity for us to advance women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses. And so it's going to really take a lot of intention among those that represent a variety of industries in elected office to continue to advance greater opportunities for women. Because the ambition, and look, when you got a room full of men making a decision about who's going to be part of that boardroom, about who's going to be part of these leadership roles, it's a very insular group. And so until there's more of us that make up those decision-making roles, we're going to have to fight our way in, but we're going to have to create the back, you know, really the bench of more candidates. And so the only way we do that is to do it with intention and create more of those opportunities for women to serve in leadership roles.
So I just want to jump in, and I say that exact same thing, that we need to be intentional if we are going to level the playing field. When I was elected to the Board of Supervisors, I only had 2 aides, and I was only the second woman that got elected and the only Asian on the board at that time in San Francisco. So I hired 2 women, and they were both Chinese. And I remember how many people said to me, like, Monica, like, you can't have 2 women. You should hire a guy. And I said, look at all the other men. The other men all have pretty much, you know, all guys. So it worked for me. And I think, you know, we need to be intentional. I have a chief of staff now who is Filipino. And when we walk into banking meetings, it's very uncomfortable sometimes because they're not used to having women or people of color at the leadership roles. And now they have to invite someone who's a little bit lower level. But because of that, these women are getting promoted, finally. I don't know how many women have said to me, oh, I've been waiting 12 years for a promotion. And they just somehow say it's not time. And then now, because me and my chief of staff, we go to all these banking meetings, they are now getting promoted. So sometimes it takes us just being at the table. We don't have to say anything, but they understand and they can feel that it's just not right the way the room looks.
I want to add something. So I think that it's not just we as women that need to be intentional, but men also need to be intentional. I know we've had issues in the state legislature where there's a press conference announcing a major policy issue and it's all men. And the lead author just never thought of that, right? And, until someone points it out to him, and then they apologize profusely, right, to all of us. Even if there's a woman author, co-author, right? They just didn't even think of inviting them to join this press conference. And so I think all of us, right, men and women, need to be intentional and think about this in everything we do, right? Not just when it comes to appointing somebody, but when we have meetings, press conference, or hiring staff, and all of the decisions that we make.
And I'll just add, and I totally agree with everything everyone said, when we call them out, we shouldn't be afraid to do it publicly, or at least sort of within the larger group, because it's when people feel that they're going to be held accountable that it makes them think about these things before they take their action. If they think someone's just going to pull them aside in the hallway, it's not going to make much difference. But we've seen it in the legislature where some of these guys have been called out sort of in our caucus meeting in front of the whole group. And it makes a huge difference for the rest of them later. They are like, oh, I don't want to be that guy.
Well, we hope to be in a place where we don't have to remind them. I know of some boards that are being put together and it's all males and I have to remind them. Again, we hope that they're intentional in making sure that they are inclusive. Let's talk about COVID a little bit. I know that 1 year later, it's a conversation that we're going to continue to have, especially those of you who are leading cities that have been disproportionately hit and very, very affected. How difficult has it been during this lockdown, to juggle work, family, governing? Shirley, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay, so I can start. Since I'm the state's banker, so every revenue, tax, fine, fee, penalty comes into my bank, totaling $2 trillion. I also invest the state's idle funds and issue bonds. And so when this pandemic hit, this is my 4th elected office and we've gone through a number of downturns. So I kind of am used to being in a deficit emergency situation. So automatically, I'm on calls at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock with different team members just to check in, trying to get people, to work from home, making sure they have a computer, making sure my divisions are able to do what they have to do. Nobody has COVID every day. It's just constant. But more communication is better. And I was in the office physically in Sacramento. I don't have a place in Sacramento, but I was there Monday through Friday from March until July. I believe leadership starts at the top. People are not going to want to come to work if the leader is home. So I said, I am at the office every day, right? So I think we all have to figure out how we lead, but that's, I think, a criticism, and maybe that's because I'm a woman. I feel like there's double standards. The men can stay home and not go into the office, but I feel like if this is my agency, I have to be there, and I have to, jump through more hoops. I have to be more knowledgeable, about everything that's happening. And the bright light of this pandemic is I now know pretty much what everyone is doing in my office, all the divisions. I also chair 13 boards and committees, and I've shown up at every one of them to chair. So I am in all the briefings. I'm doing all the talking. And it's been really, really a great opportunity. So that is like my silver lining, is I've been much closer to my team, but I also know like what everybody is doing at the treasurer's office.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll jump in too, because I think one of the challenges, especially for working moms, has been really amplified during this pandemic. And I know, Laura's daughter is younger, but than my two. I have my son is going to be 21 this summer. My daughter will be 19. But in the midst of all the work that I was doing, I had a daughter who lost her senior year, like so many other young people have been impacted. I'm grateful that, my kids are old enough at this point, but they still weren't without their struggles. And it was tough as a mother to balance supporting her needs and being sympathetic or empathetic to that circumstance without, trying to balance the needs to do my day-to-day job when thousands of families are counting on us to provide and plug in the support that they need from, trying to grow our food banks and sustain resources for them. I mean, we were working, our first couple of council meetings were over 12 hours long. So it was a really difficult time to kind of balance all of those things. And look, we've seen the difficulties that so many working moms have been impacted by this pandemic, how many young people, the learning loss, they're projecting that the learning loss that young people have endured just in this 1 year alone is going to result in a 6 to 9% deficiency in their earning capacity in the future. And so when you're talking about communities of color, when you're talking about, like, you're exacerbating poverty in such a profound way based on this current event. And so, I think it's been a really difficult balance. I'm grateful that my kids are older, but I can't imagine, Laura, with all of, with your daughter and she's younger, the difficulties of balancing all of those things have been incredibly tough.
And I think we come to our time since our wonderful Lisa has joined us. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this morning's conversation.
And cheers to this amazing panel of women. You are so inspirational, and your bravery getting involved in politics in these crazy times and leading us through unprecedented challenges. I watch each and every one of you with awe and admiration, and go for my Assembly Member Laura Friedman. I'm so proud to be one of your constituents. And Christina, thank you for doing a wonderful job here today. And thank you, ladies, so much for also bearing with us during some technological challenges. We should put Luz in charge of our technology from here on out. So she's going to be our honorary technological lead. And thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate your thoughtfulness and your candid talk about what it takes to be in leadership and to be elected. So now we are moving on to our keynote speaker today. And I'm actually really excited because Stephanie Shea from Biocom LA is not only an inspiration and someone who I think you guys are going to be astounded by her story, but she's also a good friend. And I'm back. I hope you guys can see me. Anyway, I was just talking about my my good friend Stephanie Shea from Biocom LA, who's our next speaker. She's our keynote speaker, and she's going to be joining us to share a little bit about her personal story and her journey, and also about the exciting things that she's doing with the incredible organization that is Biocom Los Angeles. So without any further ado, I'm going to break into telling you a little bit more about Stephanie. So at Biocom LA, Stephanie is the leading edge of transforming the greater Los Angeles area into a premier life sciences hub. Prior to taking the helm of Biocom LA, Stephanie was president and CEO of Metatope Biosciences, an early-stage biotechnology company developing revolutionary immuno-oncology therapeutics. And you should try to say that 10 times fast. She holds a JD from Columbia Law School, an MBA from Stanford's Graduate School of Business, and a bachelor's degree in biological chemistry from Wellesley. So as you can tell, Stephanie has been really, really taking it easy in the educational front. I don't see her coming on yet, so if I have to, I'll just keep telling you all the wonderful things that I know about Stephanie. There she is. Hi, Steph.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. What a hard act to follow. Multiple acts. You guys should have put me in the front of the lineup. Anyway, good morning to everyone. Thank you to Vika and all our sponsors for inviting me here this morning, but more importantly, for bringing us all together for this amazing conversation, recognizing and celebrating extraordinary women in leadership. It's truly an honor, and I'm a little intimidated now to be with you virtually, but I do want to note I am in my office in the Valley in Sherman Oaks. So my name is Stephanie C. And as Lisa mentioned, I'm the executive director of Biocom California's Los Angeles office. For those of you who are not familiar with Biocom California, we are to California's life sciences what VICA is to Valley businesses. We're a trade association supporting and fighting every day for our 1,400 life science industry members across the state. So I've been here at Biocom LA for almost 6 months, not quite. I would say living my dream job still, because it combines three of my biggest passions: a passion for the region, a passion for biotech, and also a passion for building things, like building really gnarly, complex things like ecosystems. Before I get to talking about ecosystems, however, I just thought, considering it's Women's History Month and why we're here, I would just share some of the twists and turns in my 30-year career as a woman in biotech, and share how I got here to what I believe is finally the right place at the right time. So I actually grew up wanting to be a doctor. That's how I ended up a biochemistry major at Wellesley. So I entered college pre-med. I followed the path, took all the prerequisites for med school. But by senior year, I really was pretty sure that med school was not right for me. At that time, I really wanted to be a pediatric oncologist if I was going to go to med school. So I had a friend of a friend who was doing his residency in pediatric oncology. I shadowed him for a day, and that pretty much sealed the deal. I really knew that med school wasn't for me after that. I couldn't do that. At the same time, I was doing an undergraduate thesis in medicinal organic chemistry and was a disaster in the lab, I'll say. I hated being in the lab alone for hours on end. I fell behind in my experiments. And that earned me a hot date on a long Friday night with my thesis advisor. We spent 5 riveting hours watching this goop drip down this big column torturously slowly into a beaker. But really, it was, he was seriously a wonderful mentor, my first real non-blood relative mentor who spent the time that night to really ask me, okay, kiddo, if not med school, what are you thinking? And as a result, this was really the catalyst for my first sort of career twist, even though I hadn't started my career yet, resulting in my going to Columbia Law School instead of Columbia Med School. I practiced patent law for 5 years under some of the top names in the field at major New York law firms. But over that time, I really found myself increasingly interested in our clients' business issues and decreasingly interested in their legal issues, which didn't bode well. It was representing a San Diego startup, actually, that was sued on the eve of their IPO that was the catalyst for major career twist number 2, which sent me off to business school. Like, I couldn't just, of course, just dabble, take a couple of courses at night and see if this is what I wanted to do. No, I dove in head first, quit my very nicely paying job in New York, packed up the car, and moved sight unseen out to California to attend Stanford's full-time MBA program. My goal was always a biotech startup. I was hoping to find something in oncology, something in LA, but fully acknowledging that I'd probably have to spend many hours on Amtrak down to San Diego or compromise in some other way. But my Goldilocks opportunity really did present itself in the form of an early discovery at City of Hope. So here I was with an oncology startup opportunity just 7 miles from home in Pasadena. And that was super exciting. That experience really laid the foundation for me for what I'm doing now. So that was 9 years ago. The company's still here, based here in LA, still doing great work. But over that 9-year or 10-year arc, and over that time, I've really seen the local landscape change a lot. When we first started Meditope, there was no space for us to move into. There were no investors for me to meet with. There really was no experienced talent in the region to drive our science forward. And so I've witnessed just this dramatic change, even just in the last 3 years, I'll say. We are truly at a tipping point here in the region. And this is the catalyst for career twist number 3, or my latest career twist, I'll say, from biotech entrepreneur to Biocom LA. So as women, as leaders, as women leaders in this room, I'm guessing, and we've heard a lot of it this morning, right? I was the only whatever, fill in the blank, only Asian kid in my class, only woman in a business meeting, more recently, only LA-based biotech at an investor conference. I really embrace those only moments. I love challenging perceptions and status quo and surprising people. And I think that that's also the basis for why I see LA poised to become the next premier global life science hub. So I moved here 20 years ago from the Bay Area. It seemed to me when I got here that we had more in the greater LA area and in this basin in terms of raw materials for creating a true biotech hub than even the Bay Area. World-class research institutions, wonderful institutions of higher ed like CSUN, space to grow, a large and diverse population. We've always had amazing innovation here. I'll say in the last 6 months, I've heard a lot of people say, well, there's no innovation in LA. We have amazing innovation here. Last year, $1.7 billion in NIH funding came into those world-class research institutions to LA County alone. That's the most money received of any county in California. And we've really been the top of that leaderboard for a very long time. So what's different now? From my perspective, we're finally seeing all the necessary pieces come together in our region at the same time to create some stickiness for those innovations and for those startups that are born out of those innovations. So stickiness in the form of that lab space and incubator space to move into, stickiness in terms of investment and people focused on investing in LA life sciences, and stickiness in the terms of support from elected officials like a lot of you here and a lot of the women that we've heard from this morning. So in terms of infrastructure, just to give you a sense of the growth that we've experienced recently, in 2015, I could count the number of incubator spaces on one hand. Actually, I wouldn't need the full hand, right? By the end of 2020, we've had well over a dozen, and there seems to be more incubator space coming online seemingly every day in our region. In 2015, in terms of investments, we saw $500 million in venture money come into and invest in LA life sciences companies. In 2020, we've grown that number to $2 billion. So the other thing, and then in terms of elected official support too, I think this is really important, is in the last few years, especially at the county level, we've seen that support. We've seen the county step forward to champion biosciences and bioscience initiatives, from workforce development to venture financing to that infrastructure and so much more. So we're on the right trajectory now, but the challenges still remain. And I think that a lot of our challenges are very unique to us as Angelenos in this region. Some of our greatest assets are also some of our greatest challenges. So we've got a lot of space, which means we have space to grow, but it also means that we, as we all know, tend to develop in these little micro clusters around town, which dilutes our voices and really loses that power of strength and numbers that we have here. And while we have a richness in diversity and talent and technology, it means that we're also home to other really wonderful, innovative industries like Hollywood and aerospace, all of us vying for the same resources and the same attention. So what we end up with is this fragmentation, this micro clustering spread across not just LA County, but the surrounding 5 counties also. And what we need to do, in my mind right now, is pull all those and network all those micro clusters together into a true robust and resilient ecosystem. Add to this something that I think is really important for us to talk about is the fact that while we've created the stickiness for our innovations and for our startups here in LA County and around, many of those startups are facing or will soon face what we refer to fondly in the industry as the valley of death. And it is as bad as it sounds. It's where really good technologies and really great teams go to die. These are groups right, that we've already invested a lot of money in, that 1.7 billion in NIH funding, as well as seed funding that have come into these companies to help them grow and validate their technology. They're reaching a point where, and they inevitably reach a point where they outgrow that incubator space, where they've spent their seed money on validating and optimizing their technology, but now they need that next bigger round to get them into human clinical trials. And so, you know, we really need to make sure that we support those companies and by extension, our industry to successfully, well, to help them successfully traverse that valley of death to the other side. And I'm talking about support, continued support that we're seeing, but in the form of targeted investment. And I'm not talking about just money, but targeted investment and dedicated resources to really focus on infrastructure, more infrastructure, larger spaces, what we call that step up space, maybe innovation parks to draw, well, I refer to as the anchor tenants like a Merck or a J&J, greater institutional investment to get them to that next level, to get us as an industry to that next level and really hum in here. Workforce development initiatives, and of course, continued support from elected officials to ensure that we do make it successfully to the other side of the valley, not just for the health of our industry, but also for the health of and well-being of our very large and diverse and aging population, as we've seen this year, and also to the health and quicker recovery, I believe, of our regional economy. So COVID has really accelerated, I think, a lot of our industry's growth in this region. Comfort with Zoom, remote working, it's broken down a lot of those geographic barriers that we were facing going into the pandemic, bringing all parts of our community together, not just in our region, but outside of our borders as well. It's also shown a spotlight on the importance of our industry through the provision of life-saving vaccines, of course, but also through landmark collaborations between entities in an industry that's already very collaborative. We've seen everybody come together from the military to the FDA to academia and all aspects of the private sector, even across competitors like Merck and J&J most recently. And I think as an industry, we've demonstrated to the world, as well as frankly to ourselves, what we can achieve if we really put our minds together and how quickly we can achieve it if we really focus and work together. And if you look at the effect of our industry on your lives, on the world, in just fighting a single virus, imagine what we could do if we applied that same focus and effort to just a handful even of the amazing innovations, life science and life-saving innovations that we have going on here in LA. As a microcosm of the world, LA is ideally suited to create a national, even global model of diverse health solutions for an extremely diverse population. So when I assumed the role here at Biocom back in October, I was already bullish on our prospects as an industry for our region and health of our economy. I'm only more so now as I've spent the time here and have really spent the last 6 months peeling back the layers and seen firsthand how we've navigated the challenges of the past year. And so the biggest silver lining for me this year has been how our industry has come together and reached into communities like never before to address the largest healthcare crisis of our lives, right? But we can't stop now. We can't get complacent. So we are the second largest industry in California. LA County is in our industry in LA County. We are responsible for 200,000 direct jobs and over $11 billion direct dollars to the economy. So I just want to finish up by saying, you know, we've just amazing conversation. I was tempted to just pitch this whole presentation to you this morning and kind of talk about some of the threads, but women make 80% of all healthcare decisions in the US. So everyone has a stake in this, but we in this Remo room, especially as women, as leaders in our communities, as leaders in business, we have a very special stake in this, right? So I just want to leave you with a challenge to think about what your stake is in this, be it your health, health of loved ones, health and well-being and productivity of your employees, success of your business, faster recovery of our economy, a future career to students out there. What is your stake? And more importantly, what role do you want to play in this movement? To learn more about our industry, to be inspired, I would encourage you to maybe hop on the Biocom website, shameless plug. Take a look. We've got wonderful events, wonderful webinars and info on there. Reach out to us, all of us at Biocom California, and especially here in the LA office. Really want you to join us on our journey. We're super excited and we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you for having me this morning. This was fantastic. And Lisa, next time put me at the top of the lineup, okay? So I don't have to follow all those amazing women.
No way, sister. You hit it home. No way. See, I got to push you out of your comfort zone. You get to be the wrap up. You get to be our heart, our soul, our brain. We loved it. Thank you so much. And
well, thank you
we're really glad we're really glad we were able to get you on this panel today. But more importantly, we're really happy to have you leading the way in Los Angeles on such an important issue and topic. And the work that you're doing is really inspirational. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so that's it, ladies. You did it. You made it. You were here. You showed up. You showed up for each other. You supported one another. You taught us so much. And I'm just so pleased that we were able to bring this event back. It was a little bit heartbreaking that we didn't get to do it last year, but boy, did we come back in strong fashion and a little smarter. I'm going to say I'm a little pudgier after this lockdown. I've had about 47 different hair colors, and but I'm excited. I'm excited for the future, and I'm so proud to be part of VICA and to be surrounded by such amazing women. And I really hope next year we'll be able to do this in person, so I can give all of you hugs as long as we're fully vaccinated. Steph will make sure we're getting what we need. So on behalf of VICA and CSUN, Nazarian College, Southern California Gas Company, and U.S. Bank, and all of our other sponsors, I'd like to thank you guys for being here. If you'd like to hang out, we're going to have we're going to have tables available like we did at the beginning. And so if you want to network or catch up with one another, there'll be a little bit more time until about 11:30. And I'd like to thank the VICA staff, as always, Kathy and Jessica and Stuart. The whole team has done such an amazing job here today. And Shauna, and we really couldn't do, and Kayla, we couldn't do this without you guys. And so we're very happy that you continue to hit it out of the park. I know I speak for a lot of people when I say that VICA is doing some of the most amazing events in lockdown. So very proud of the work that we're doing. And I hope you guys will join us for our VICA Newsmaker Connection on April 5th. We have a VICA After Dark on April 14th. And we have a first sip on April 16th. And thank you guys so much for being here, and have a great day.